The Arizona Cardinals reduced their roster to 53. Our biggest surprises, who made the roster and who didn't. Plus, they're looking for a cornerback, and their coach confirmed that. We're talking about it all on today's Locked On Cardinals. I'm Bo Brock, along with Alex Clancy.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Rise up, Red Sea. Bo Brock, Alex Clancy hanging out with you. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at Locked On AZ Cards, at BOBRACK, and at Clancy's Corner. We have a great podcast in store for you. I felt like we were recording all day yesterday. We put out two pretty lengthy podcasts that went in depth on Malcolm Butler, went in depth on the 53-man roster, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up, put a little bow on it today, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it was eventfully uneventful. I mean, I guess you could say with Malcolm Butler, you know, the ongoing saga of why he's retiring, why he's put on the retired list. One name that isn't on any list for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll talk about that as well. And if we're happy with the current state of the Cardinals, 11 days away from kickoff in week 1.
Yeah, well, there are a couple things we're going to cover on today's podcast. One, guys that surprised us that made the 53-man roster, which remains kind of a fluid situation despite it being you can't go back on the initial roster. So you got your initial 53 guys, but there's a long way to go for those guys that are fringe roster types between now and Nashville when the Arizona Cardinals kick off the regular season against the Tennessee Titans. Cliff Kingsbury addressed the Malcolm Butler situation or just the cornerback situation. The ex-girlfriend of the Arizona Cardinals continues to be as petty as they can possibly get. We'll explain what that means. And we're not going to start previewing the Tennessee Titans just yet. We're just not. We've got a long way to go. We're a daily podcast. We love to talk to you every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I do want to point out, if you want to know more about the Tennessee Titans, though, check out the Ultimate Season Preview. Yeah, with the NFL season about to begin, nobody covers it like the Locked On Podcast Network, and it started on Monday. It's the Locked On's Ultimate Season Preview, taking you through every team, every division with the help of Odyssey's Ross Tucker and Jason La Canfora. Follow the Ultimate Season Preview 2021 feed on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. And today, it's the AFC South, and a shot was fired from Tennessee Titans host Tyler Rowland, saying that that's the best collection of hosts, that division, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Well, it's flat out wrong. And the NFC West will show up and show out here pretty soon. Alex and I were part of that group, that talented group of hosts, just as talented as this division is stacked. And we break it down, man. And we don't pull any punches here. Like, we have fun. We make fun of Kyle Shanahan because it's easy to. We make fun of, the idea that Matthew Stafford is a legit MVP candidate, despite Alex and I kind of believing in him fantasy-wise. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then he might be on both of our rosters in a couple respective leagues. Yeah. But let's get into this. Do we want to talk Patrick Peterson, or do we want to talk about
right away? I want to talk about right away.
Let's get it right out of the way. Okay, so yesterday, after all the drama, after it was kind of finalized, after all the speculation, and of course the reporting from Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, he had the initial report that Malcolm Butler, just 5 months after signing a deal with the Arizona Cardinals to play and be one of their starting cornerbacks, was mulling retirement. And then officially the Arizona Cardinals, before releasing their 53-man roster, actually parallel to that, they put him on the reserve retire list. And shortly on social media, Craig Harris was able to capture this from one Patrick Peterson. Part of his stories. Is that Cardinal red? Is that part of it?
I mean, the dude is I just can't.
Well, the real Patrick Peterson. This is on Instagram.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't meant to be. Is it Wario?
Ward.
Or what is it? Ward.
Yeah, instead of Warren. I don't know. The jersey 21.
Oh, Ward. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can look at that. Bad verbiage aside.
Horrible grammar.
if there's if there's any
Word.
sort of personal reason, and listen, we'll talk about this is the important part. We'll segue to Malcolm Butler in a second. Like, if there is some real personal stuff going on that's making him retire, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's just another unconscionable thing that Patrick Peterson has done since leaving the Cardinals. It's like, so you're gonna knock a man when he's down if something personal is happening with him or his family. It's like, well, I guess 21 isn't supposed to be worn. It's like, you know what? And I tweeted this out, and it was probably, a little bit overblown, but I mean, he's starting to walk his way out of the Ring of Honor. Like, at what point does he need to shut the hell up and forget that he played for the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, I mean, time heals all wounds, and he's just lengthening that time. Like, it used to be pretty short, and you're like, okay, after a couple seasons that he has left in the NFL, and it's not much longer if he doesn't improve his play. It's going to be a little bit longer than expected. I mean, it's going to be Larry Fitzgerald and some other guys, and then they might get to P2. I mean, at some point he will. I don't think he'll ever get his way completely out, because I think people will kind of forget this pettiness. But that's exactly what it is, and it's not two-sided. Like, we pay attention, and Craig Harris was able to pull that and stuff. But it's very apparent that Patrick Peterson still, like the Arizona Cardinals, live between his ears. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know how that's going to go week 2. And I think there's a very good chance that it goes poorly for him. I don't think that he has the ability. He can talk the talk, but I don't know if he has the ability to truly walk the walk and shut down the Arizona Cardinals passing game enough to back up the way he's been speaking of the organization.
Now, again, because I feel like we have to do this. Patrick Peterson was an excellent Arizona Cardinal through 2017. It's one of the better corners we've seen wear an Arizona Cardinals uniform. I tweeted out, I think J.J. Watt has already been a better leader before playing a game than Patrick Peterson ever was for this organization. I think both of those things can be true. He requested a trade. He said, just kidding. He said, I want to be the next Larry Fitzgerald. Then he got popped for PEDs in succession. Yeah. Those are the 4 things that happened. And then he was a C+ B- corner last year with a cornerback room that needed his production. Now, right now, what Patrick Peterson has is, you've said this, I've made fun of you for it, but let's just say he has FOMO. He has fear of missing out, because this is the most fun roster the Arizona Cardinals have put together since he's been an Arizona Cardinal. Maybe not the most talented, but 2015 was a boring team with a lot of really good and high floor players. And, it's not bad to be fun. Sometimes fun isn't great. You don't want to be the fun parent. You want to be the parent that you can reprimand your child and have the respect. Like, there's right. Give and take for both. But this is the sexiest and most fun roster the Cardinals have had probably since he was drafted. And they didn't want to give him $10 million. So we left.
Yeah. I kind of like it. At this point, I like it because it provides fodder. The fact that he just can't get over the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah. It's just like, okay, all right. Like, before, I understand there was things in the headlines. Malcolm Butler did sign. He did take your old number. And like, I kind of get it. And you felt wronged by the organization. But now it's just like, you've gone through training camp. You've played games for your new organization, and you're still scrolling your old ex-girlfriend's Instagram feed. You're looking at their Facebook feed on a daily basis, and you need to just stop. You just need to stop and focus, because otherwise, if you don't focus on what you need to, pay attention to, it's going to be a long year. I mean, what he needs to do for that Vikings defensive secondary, which was terrible, 29th last year. The turnaround there that they're expecting from a guy that's over 30, I don't know if it's realistic.
And if you're Minnesota, you're like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you looking back? We just gave you way too much money to be a Minnesota Viking. You know what? Maybe jump forward here and not look not look so lovingly and scornfully back at your ex using that comparison. It's just, I mean, he was brought in to mold young corners and raise the floor in the cornerback room, alongside Harrison Smith, who just got paid over the top as their baller safety. Like, yeah, if I'm looking at this, it's like, shut up. We got games to play. Week 2 is going to be fascinating for so many different reasons. I mean, not just for the fact that the Cardinals' cornerback room may have taken a step back. I mean, I guess we'll mention it. Like, or, and that with Minnesota's offense coming in and what Patrick Peterson can do against the Cardinals wide receivers. It's going to be fascinating.
It really is. It really is. And look, we'll say this again. He probably the best of all time to ward number 21 for the Arizona Cardinals. He wore that jersey number pretty well for the Cardinals back in the day. Patrick Peterson. Well, in that conversation, Cliff Kingsbury has talked about the cornerback room that Alex mentioned, and do they plan on adding anybody? There are 5 warm bodies that play the cornerback position currently on the roster. Some people say there's 5. It's 4, right? We have 4 guys on the roster that are going to play the cornerback position. We'll get in what the K2 had to say about it, and also we'll get into the conversation about who surprised us by making the roster, who came out of nowhere to secure themselves one of the 53 spots on this Arizona Cardinals roster. We'll talk about that. It's all coming up. It's Locked on Cardinals. Let's talk about week 1 of the NFL season. It's nearly upon us, and it's football season, and it's that time of year as all eyes turn to football. We are going to have some college football this weekend, and BetOnline is your number one spot for all pro and college football action this season. Get updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL Mega Contest, the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest. Open now at BetOnline. Head over to the website on your cell phone. Sign up today. Receive 100% welcome bonus. Dollar for dollar, whatever you put in for your first deposit. Take advantage as well of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, the season opener between the Bucs and the Cowboys. And if you lose, you don't lose because your wager will be refunded up to $25. That's for new customers only when signing up using the promo code NFL100. Bet online, the fastest, easy way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of their great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, back here, Locked on Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. We're seeing numbers that we haven't seen before. Incredible. Thank you to everybody that listens, that subscribes, that follows along, whatever podcast platform you use, plus the new to YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody that's subscribed. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. Please hit that like button on it. We appreciate it. This thing is growing beyond our wildest dreams, and we cannot wait to see where this thing's going. And we haven't even played a regular season football game at this point. So
yeah,
it's going to be fun. Yeah. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, and all of this, you're right. Thank you, Patrick Peterson. Continue.
Right.
Please continue.
It's there's, I don't think that there is a better community either of fans as far as the interaction that we get, people chiming in, and that's what we want. We want to encourage it. Like yesterday was awesome. We had people, chatting and talking about the Malcolm Butler situation, guys who were being cut from different rosters, and people kind of giving their own insight, their own ideas. And we absolutely encourage that here on the Locked On Cardinals podcast. You're hanging with Bo and Alex here. And so Darren Urban tweeted this out, and the Arizona Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury said that they will, quote, definitely look to see if there's a cornerback to add to the roster. He said the line of communication remains open with Malcolm Butler, as the only thing we know about that situation is it's a personal issue. I can't imagine being on the reserve retired list is just paperwork to get him back if they want to. But now they just got to do their due diligence, and kind of looking, Alex, at the free agent trash heap. There's not much there.
Yeah. And just to button on Malcolm Butler, I think they're also doing it instead of cutting him because he might go sign for another team. If there's a reason why he's being put on the reserve retired list, like let's hit on this really quickly before we go to the trash heap. Like, there are conflicting reports, conflicting rumors, speculation as to why this is happening. I'm always in the camp, like, if they say it's for a personal reason, I'm saying, you know what? Football's not important. If it's a family thing, go do it. But there's also speculation, like, Bo, what was it? That there's only one unvaccinated Arizona Cardinal? Is that right?
Yeah, that was reported. Darren Urban said that there's only one unvaccinated Arizona Cardinal remaining.
So, I mean, that could be it. Maybe we don't know this, but it's for speculation. What if it is him? Maybe, you know what, he's standing up like, listen, I don't want to get vaccinated. I'm going to retire. I've made enough money. I don't need this game anymore. Fine. It's your prerogative. The other one is, which is the most interesting, is he was the lowest Pro Football Focus rated corner in the Cardinals in the preseason. And as Bo mentioned yesterday, it really could be much ado about nothing because we know what he is. We know what he is as a corner, and he's going to be the cornerback one most likely if he were to play regardless of his age. But maybe he lost his spot, and maybe he didn't want to play if he wasn't going to be CB1 lined up against the wide receiver ones of opposing teams. So there's just a bunch of different speculation as to why, but that's another interesting storyline surrounding Malcolm Butler. But again, if it's important and it's his family, get the hell out of here. Do whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah, if it's anything. I mean, if it's his, he's a guy that's from, the South, and there's a big hurricane, about to hit that area. If that's something what he's kind of concerned about, it's all speculation right now. I mean, it's nothing. I haven't seen anything that a real true substance in reporting that tells us anything that would shed light on the personal reasons that he's stepping away from the game. And exactly. I mean, you're right. I mean, if it's something to do with family, and he feels like that's the best move for his family, it's not for us to chime in on that or voice our opinion whether that's wrong or right. It's up to Malcolm Butler. So I would have loved to see him line up for the Arizona Cardinals. I thought that he was actually a good player to replace Patrick Peterson as far as what production Peterson provided last year when that secondary was. I mean, you could have gone otherwise, but you would have had to break the bank, or you would have had to surrender some draft capital. And I think all options have to be open as far as the cornerback room. They're looking, who was it? Our buddy Mike that tweeted at us, who's going to be it was a Joe Hayden's going to be a free agent in 2022. That's too long. You can't wait that long. I mean, the window's right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And we talked a little bit about yesterday, like, is there somebody, can you pluck somebody from a different organization and, offer too high of a draft pick where they can't say no? I mean, this is kind of uncharted waters, and it's, they didn't have a safety net going into training camp. And then now it's just, you hope Marco Wilson can ball, you hope he can play at an NFL level already, which is super unfair to ask. We've seen it before, but a 4th round pick coming out there's been no track record of Steve Keim drafting anybody after the 3rd round that's really popped. It's like, we need to see it before we believe it.
Yeah. Let me say this, and then I want to ask you a question. As far as Marco Wilson, like, you can be encouraged by Marco Wilson, but also starting him against wide receivers that are A.J. Brown and Julio Jones could be just a catastrophe. It could be awful. Like, I don't like that. I like that of the least of any of the. If it's Robert Alford, I'll take Robert Alford getting beat and not having to have a tough lesson taught to him in week 1 in his first regular season game in Marco Wilson.
Yeah.
But let me ask you that.
Go ahead.
Do the Arizona Cardinals right now, without Malcolm Butler, who's on the reserve retired list, on defense, have enough talent to keep their head above water between now and the NFL trade deadline to where there could be potentially guys emerge onto the trade market?
I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out real quick, because it's not only AJ Green and Julio Jones, it's Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen next. Like, it's not like there's no room for error. Maybe in Jacksonville, but who knows with these guys? And I mean, it really is going to be dependent upon the pass rush. And we've talked about this, how Zaven Collins is in coverage, and Chandler Jones and JJ Watt getting a push up front. Like, if you, and the problem with Ryan Tannehill is the dude's he's got a motor. I mean, he's got legs. So it's going to be a very, very tough matchup, but it is going to be the litmus test necessary for the Cardinals to kind of determine where they are. Like, if they lose, if Tennessee puts up a 40 burger, which I don't think they will, but say they put up a 40 burger and the Cardinals lose 40-30, there's already going to be looks to try and acquire a cornerback from somebody else. And the 1st round pick will be on the table. And I think it should be, because if everything goes to plan, the Cardinals are going to be drafting in the 20s. That's the idea.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I brought up the NFL trade deadline is because right now that there's different teams and what their expectations are, and the Arizona Cardinals would be looking at some teams that are pretty much already counting themselves out. Now, I'm not saying anybody's going to say that they would count themselves out, but teams like the Texans that have very low expectations that you could pry away an NFL starting caliber cornerback from that roster, like right now. And then there's the exceptions, like who knows what's going on with Henderson down in Jacksonville and if they can repair that relationship. But then if you wait to the deadline, there's going to be teams that are going to kind of have a good idea of where they're going this season. And, the one kind of blueprint that stands out to me is what Baltimore was able to do in year 2. Lamar Jackson was go out and get Marcus Peters. Because, obviously there's no Marcus Peters that grow on trees. Right. Like you can't find that. It's not going to be available each and every regular season on the trade market. But, the Arizona Cardinals, and we saw this, a couple guys tweeted this and we're in the chat about it when we were talking yesterday, the idea of Isaiah Simmons playing a little cornerback, getting into coverage. It's like that might work on a play, and he might be a very above average coverage linebacker. And that helps you on the kind of the middle of the field, but outside, that's where the Arizona Cardinals, everybody has been concerned about. There's not anybody that you can rely upon on the outside to cover at all.
Yeah. And let me tell you this. So you asked, the trade deadline is November 2nd. So that's going to be after week 8. So the Cardinals from week 1 through week 8 play the Titans, the Vikings, the Jaguars, Rams, 49ers, Browns, and then the Texans and the Packers on Thursday night. So no. The answer is no. In my opinion, the answer is no. Okay. Unless Marco Wilson just comes out and turns out to be the next Marshawn Lattimore, Jalen Ramsey, like right out of the gates. Those guys are both first-round picks.
Yeah.
High-ish first-round picks.
The pass rush would have to be elite. Yeah. It would. It would have to be up there with what Washington football team was able to produce with Marquez, with Sweat, and with
Montez
Chase
Sweat,
Young. Yeah, Montez Sweat. It's where they're just terrorizing opposing offenses. It's J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones at the age of 30. Can you get 8 weeks out of them to weather that storm? I don't know if that's possible. But look, they do. If they want to contend, they're going to have to add somebody, whether it's now or whether it's during the season. They're just going to have to.
And one last thing, put a button on it, that Budda Baker may have to play a completely different role in this defense. Like if he's a safety, you may have to play him more over the top and just, hope it and pray that you can band-aid the secondary that way.
Yeah.
It just, you want him to be more of a rover like Tyrann Mathieu, but he's got to do what the defense needs him to do the most.
No doubt about it. Who was a surprise player that made the 53-man roster? Alex and I have a couple of guys in mind. We'll tell you who that is. It's Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Alex at Clancy's Corner. Follow me at BLBRACK and at Locked On AZ Cardinals. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Today, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love with no hassle. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract, so stop waiting to get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Putting your streaming and your on-demand together, those worlds collide just like tasty and healthy with Built Bar, Alex.
I love Built Bar. I have one left. I'm going to be back home later this afternoon. I decided that I'm going to eat it tomorrow. It's my orange. It's my favorite one. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the planet. They like to say they're the healthiest candy bar on the planet because it's pretty much like a candy bar without the 40 grams of sugar. They've been doing blind taste tests. Coconut almond versus almond joy. And I think it was cookies and cream versus Three Musketeers. I believe, I can't remember exactly the flavor, but Built Bar is winning on blind taste tests. And they've only got 3 or 4 grams of sugar on each one. They got plenty of protein. 9 flavors that are around all the time: coconut almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. So there's something for everybody. Upwards of 18 grams of protein, at most 180 calories, and at most 5 grams of net carbs. Like, it's no brainer. They're like 4 bites. They're soft. They don't taste like chalk. And that's why we love them so much. We don't just pub them, but when I eat them. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We've got a new Cardinals follow for you guys. Our guy Kevin Parrish Jr. joined the organization. He's going to be doing a lot of work for the website, azcardinals.com, staff writer over there. He reached out to the show, to Alex. We appreciate Kevin tuning in, getting our insight, and looking forward to all the work that he's going to produce over there at the website. Give him a follow on Twitter at Kevin Parrish Jr. Verified. You'll find him pretty easily.
Have they removed your verification yet?
No.
I feel like there should be a sweep starting with you.
Is there any other Bob Rack out there?
No, but just the verification purposes. I'm still, even though I have it now, I still think they should remove yours.
You realize how big of a scam it is that you got it and they should
Cody Rourke. Oh, poor Cody.
Locked
on Broncos. At least there's been a moratorium on making fun of him for that. Maybe we should bring that back. Just a little salt in the wound. He's a sweet guy.
He's got to watch Teddy Bridgewater, start for his NFL team that he covers. All right, let's wrap things up here.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Antoine Wesley, the wide receiver that played for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech, make this 53-man roster. We saw Keyshawn Johnson exit. I get it. It's more of kind of adds a little diversity as far as what he brings skill set wise, size and physicality to this wide receiver core, because it's, outside of DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green, it lacks size. Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, not the biggest guys. Andy Isabella, obviously not the biggest guy. So Antoine Wesley, close to 6'4", 6'5". We saw him almost make a circus catch in the preseason. So the athleticism's there, and then the familiarity with Cliff Kingsbury. But to kind of get the nod over Greg Dortch, who can do some things in special teams, and then, of course, Keyshawn Johnson. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the running backs. I thought it was going to be either Jonathan Ward or Eno Benjamin. The fact that they both made the roster, I think it's a good sign. It shows a lot about Eno, and the fact that I think that was the surprise for everybody, that he performed the way he did, and he deserved a roster spot, not being active at all last year, and now being on part of the active roster. I think he's going to be the RB3. I don't know if he and Ward are going to bounce up and down from the practice squad or what, but it's got to be a running back by committee, because we haven't seen anything else proven otherwise.
Just one note here before we get out of here, that the Arizona Cardinals, as far as the players that did not make the roster that were with this team in training camp in the preseason, nobody was claimed so far. So any of the guys that you kind of liked this preseason, they're available to kind of maybe slide onto the practice squad. So that might kind of take your worries away that you might miss out on some of these guys that flashed a little bit or piqued your interest during the preseason training camp. So let's see what happens with the Arizona Cardinals, what that practice squad looks like going forward, or if they either didn't make any claims, or they definitely didn't win any waiver claims as far as the guys that were released from other rosters. So we'll see what happens. Guys like Antoine Wesley, guys in that running back room, probably not sleeping very well between now and the opener, because as Cliff Kingsbury told the media today, they're open to adding a cornerback, and we'll see what happens as far as roster space.
And, it's interesting. One last thing is that Travis Fulgham was released, which was very interesting to me. The wide receiver, he was a standout, obviously fantasy football standout last year. I'm not exactly sure.
He led the Eagles in receiving last year.
Yeah, and he's a big guy with great hands that came out of nowhere. I wonder if the Cardinals may, check him out as a potential option. At this point, you need to load up with what your strengths are. And, if you can add another receiver, why the hell not at this point?
Do you have an idea of what you feel like the Arizona Cardinals' strength is? I don't want you to say it, because I want to save it maybe for tomorrow.
What?
Do you feel like
room-wise or side of the ball-wise?
Room-wise.
Probably quarterback. No, the strength is probably safety, because Budda Baker's, him and Jalen Thompson is the best 2-punch for a 1-2 punch that we have to watch for. I think, at least. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll revisit that tomorrow. It's Locked On Cardinals. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at BOBRACK, at Clancy's Corner, and at Locked On AZ Cards. We appreciate everybody watching, listening. We're almost there. Tomorrow, we're officially a week out from regular season kicking off between the Bucs and the Cowboys. And before we get out of here, let me tell you about Locked On Bets. Betting on the NFL doesn't have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q, handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get the daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favored picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast, which is brought to you by betonline.ag. Wherever you get podcasts, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.